Hello, good morning. Beautiful Thursday morning from Florida. Again, my name is Everett Morris from NetMerge, and I'm your instructor for this Azure AZ 900 fundamental tutorial. I am on to part 6 of, part 4 of 6 in the Azure tutorial, and we're going to be talking about general Azure security concepts. I just want to go over them with you briefly so we could get a general understanding of what those concepts are. So we get also a general understanding of what we'll be talking about in a brief manner. So there are two parts to this course. There's the Azure security features and the Azure network security. I normally do them by session, so I'm going to do the first module, which is the Azure security. So what I'll be covering in this module is Azure Security Center, including policy compliance and security alerts, security score. I will also talk about security hygiene. Then I'll move on and talk about the Key Vault for storing secrets and password. Then I'll talk about Azure Sentinel. Then we get down to Azure Dedicated Host. We spoke about that briefly in the first chapter. And then we'll move on to the next one, which I will do a session module for that one as well, which is a security module. So why don't we get started and start looking at the features that we want to work with in this particular module. So there it is, Azure Security Center. It is a one-stop monitoring service with a clear visibility of your security posture across your entire service infrastructure in Azure. Now, the Azure Security Center is your ability to detect and react to cyber security policies and controls, add in predictions and preventions and responsiveness to the security threat portfolio or your security posture in Azure. So it's a broad piece of the security ecosystem that you want to work with inside of Azure. Now, the hardening of your security with Security Center includes the following steps or procedure. It provides monitoring and security setting across the entire premises, on premises, and also in Azure. So you get cross platform security services from that. Also, you're able to do automatic deployment of security settings for new resources at creation time. So when you're creating that virtual machine, you're applying security to it at creation time. So it's a part of your procedure, and Security Center can monitor and control that for you at the moment. You also get ongoing security recommendation for your networks and resources infrastructure. You get that from the Security Center as well. You also get machine learning. You can use machine learning to block unauthorized malware installation or any installation for that matter on your virtual machine or resources. You can also get from Security Center, you can implement what is known as adaptive application controls and rules that dictates which application can be installed and which cannot. So you get those that control as well from your Security Center. You're also able to detect and analyze and investigate potential risk, so you could mitigate vulnerabilities and harms and risk downstream. Now, the final piece, in addition to that, you get isolation and segmentation that you could use. You could also use just in time access to control network ports to limit access to unauthorized users. So, if you could limit the time that an authorized person can spend on your particular network, especially your mission critical network, that is also a plus as well. So, you get all these cool features in Azure Security Center. Let's move on and see what else we got. Now, the policy compliance is a part or a sub piece of the actual security center itself. So it is a part of your security center responsibility. If you are handling, say, for example, um, client information as a patient in the United States, they have a compliance which is referred to as the EPA form. Um, Files, it is a file for medical record. This you can manage in the security center as well. The security center can help you ensure that you're keeping abreast of regulations and policy compliances in situations like these. Now, below is a policy compliance meter. It's a single meter. It's telling me at the moment that there are 33 out of 66 resources that are in compliance, and that is a 59%. It also gives you a breakdown in a percentage form as to what your resource structure looks like. So it's a good tool to use as part of your security posture and your security structure in Azure. So that is your policy compliance. Let's take a look at your resource hygiene. Your resource hygiene measures security well-being of your resources. It's measuring the health of your security. It also remedies provide remedies for in categories such as high, medium, low, and it use graphical displays that could draw your attention. Red, it tells you what is of high priority or high severity, and then it use orange for medium severity and blue for low security risk in Azure. It also breaks it down for you in categories. So you're looking at your virtual machine and network right here. This is your network, and it's looking at your data security, your databases, and it also looks at your identity. So it gives you broad, categorized information about the health of your network as it relates to security. That's your security hygiene. Now let's move on and take a look at something else. This is your security score. Security score measures an organization overall security posture as a single percentage value. Security score incorporates security controls and recommendations as a percentage solution of your overall security score. This is an overall score. It's a single 34 from 60 points, so that's a 50% security score you would have over your overall security. Now, report on it can report on the current state of your organization security posture. It can also improve your security posture by providing discoverability, visibility, guidance, and controls that you could implement or work on. It compared the benchmark and establish key performance indicator KPIs for you. You can also use security score in Azure Center to keep an eye on identities, that is your password, your usernames, and other security features that you would have. You could keep an eye on your data, your databases, your applications, your web application, your devices and endpoints, and your overall infrastructure. So the security score provides another look at your security posture for you in a very granular manner. Now, Security Center also provides alerts that you can either ignore, you could delete, or you could act upon those recommendation manually, or using automation workflow to actually respond to those for you. Azure Logic app and Security Center connects to deliver warnings by email, message board through MS Teams channel. So again, your security score, it can also warn you through, primary sources such as your mobile phone. If you have a company phone, it can use those messages to alert you of potential security issues that are of grave concern for you and your organization. Now let's look at another piece of the security apparatus, which is the Azure Sentinel. Now, Azure Sentinel in Microsoft Cloud Base is a Microsoft Cloud-based security information and event management system. SIEM for short. So SIM aggregates data from many sources on a large scale and log it into a special format that can be used to detect threats. So again, it's another part of the security posture that you could use it for. Azure Sentinel enables you to capitalize on the following benefits, and we'll take a look at them. You're able to collect data at scale, collect data across all users, all devices, all applications, all your infrastructures on premises or off premises, and you're able to collect those data to be able to use them downstream for analysis or whatever purpose you need. It also detects previously undetected threats, minimize false positive in picking up threats by using Microsoft Comprehensive Analytics and Threat Intelligence. Let's take a look. It also allows you to investigate with artificial intelligence, examining suspicious activities at scale, tapping into years of cybersecurity experiences from Microsoft. So it's basically using Microsoft knowledge base to help formulate good policies, prevent false positives, and provide good, clear guidance as it relates to security, drawing on Microsoft's vast experience in the security arena, the cybersecurity arena. It's also able to respond to incidents rapidly using built-in orchestration and automation of common tasks. So that is your Azure Security Sentinel. So we're looking at a comprehensive set of tools that you can use to strengthen your security posture, to harden your security posture. Now, in addition to those tools, we're looking at the Azure Key Vault. It is a secure, centralized cloud service for storing top secrets in Azure with great security controls and logging capabilities. With the Key Vault, you could do a lot of stuff. It is primarily used for storing your secrets, manage secrets. You can use Key Vaults to securely store and tightly control access to tokens, passwords, certificates, API keys, and other secrets. So you're with Key Vault, your password and your usernames, they are secured. You could use Key Vault to manage encryption keys. You can use Key Vault as a key management solution. Key Vaults make it easier to create and control the encryption of keys that are used to encrypt your data. You can use it for SSL and TSL certificates. Key Vault enables you to provision, manage, deploy your public and private security socket layer or your transport layer security, SSL, TLS for short. You can control all those certificates for both your Azure resources and your internal resources as well using Key Vault. You also can store secrets backed by hardware security modules, HSM, and these secrets are keys that can be protected either by software or by FIPS 140-2 level 2 validated HSM. So these are actually hardware devices that are very secure. They store data in a random access memory instead of on a fixed drive such as a hard drive. So once that device lost power, all the information is gone. So it's another piece of device that you can use to complement the security features that you would get in a Key Vault solution. Now, let's look at some of the Azure Key Vault security benefits, the core benefits. And one, you get centralized point for sharing and safeguarding your top secrets, such as your password for your applications. So your applications, your APIs can use Key Vault as well to access and control your keys, and that is really, really powerful. You get plenty of authentication and authorization algorithms using best practices to further harden your security as well. You get monitoring so you could see who is using your keys and who is accessing their passwords. You get simplified administration of application secrets using Key Vault. It makes it easier to enroll and renew certificates from public certificate authorities. You can also scale up and replicate content within a region and use standard certificate management tools along with Key Vault. You also get integration with other Azure services. You can integrate Key Vault with storage accounts, container registries, event hubs, and many, many more Azure services. So you get nice, easy to use, seamless plugins that you could integrate with other Azure services that you have secrets that you want to guard. So these services can then securely reference the secrets stored in Key Vault and use them. So it makes your overall infrastructure, your application, your users, your devices a lot more secure when you actually pair them with Key Vault. Now, I'm going to move on and take a look at Azure Dedicated Host. I spoke about that before when I talked about security evolution. So, Azure Dedicated Host is a service provided by Azure for special needs where regulation or business rule precludes a tenant from sharing space with another. So, it's going to be a single tenant on this dedicated hosting service. So we talk about that when we talk about Azure Government for the United States, and we also mention it when we talk about China with 21 ViaNet as well. So let's look at it in more detail. So Azure Dedicated Host, you have great control over the infrastructure. You can meet compliance needs and have more control over the hardware component as a plus. You got to remember also that this comes at a price. You're asking for specialized service where you're using specialized hardware and you're using specialized resources. So that should come at an expense as well. And there it is, it's at an additional expense. Now, I'm sorry. I'm gonna move on even deeper into the entire security posture, and we're gonna take a look at what is called defense in depth strategy. It is really a multifaceted defensive mechanism designed to slow the penetration or advancement of an attack that and it then in turn gives you and your security team enough time to respond. So you get time to respond to a threat. You get time to respond to vulnerabilities. And I use this arrow to kind of show you the penetration as it goes through the different levels or the different layers. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to go through each of these layers: the physical security layer, the identity and access layer, the parameter layer, the network layer, the compute layer, the application, and then the data layer. The data is at the nucleus of your apparatus. It is what you're actually trying to protect, it's what you're trying to safeguard. So I'm going to go through these different layers so you get an idea of what the defense in depth strategy entails, and I'll brick by brick or step by step or precept by precept, they actually help to safeguard each other and actually slows the penetration process or the advancement of a threat all the way down through your system. So here's a brief overview of the different roles for each layer. So the physical layer is the first line of defense for your data center, and that is physical security. We're talking about surveillance, the biometrics, your and palm read that you would use to enter into a building, biometrics for your high scan. So all that type of security is a physical security, and it's the first layer. It's the security on the building. How do you get access to the actual physical building? So that is the first step in the in the defense strategy. Then you want to talk about identity and access. This is your username, your password, all those control that you would use Active Directory to control. That is what we're talking about, the security of your actual infrastructure once you're permitted to go through the doors or the physical gates of the premises. Next, we want to look at the perimeter, and the perimeter layer uses distributed denial of service, DDoS, protection to filter large scale attacks before they can cause denial of service to a particular user. So DDoS is another layer within the process as well. Yeah, so with DDoS, you want to prevent your system from being inundated with fake traffic that looks and behaves like real traffic. So it's an hack. It's not real. It's there to deny real users services. So you want to be able to identify it, prevent it, and isolate it, and move it out of the way so your employees or clients can function properly without any disturbance. Then you have your network layer. This is limits resource access using segmentation and isolation. This layer you would want to bring in your firewall and stuff like that to provide you with that outer protection. Next, you want to look at your compute layer. You want secure access to virtual machine and your other resources on your network, your application, your devices. You want to secure them. Next, you have your application. At the application level, you want to ensure that applications are secure and free of security vulnerabilities. So you want to run your application through the Key Vault that we just talked about as part of the security. You also can run your network through the Key Vault as well to protect your security. So anything that has to do with actual passwords and secret, you could use your key vault to help strengthen the posture of your security. Now we get to the nucleus, which is the gold, the diamond that we're trying to protect. And this is the layer that controls access to your business secrets, to all your data, your customer data that you need to protect. And protection is trying to make this information available at all time. So protection is different from security. Security is safeguarding it. Protection is making it available at all times. So this is a good overview of your security in-depth posture. Now we're going to look at them in a little bit more details. Before I carry on, I just have a little acronym that I created just for my own personal purpose when I was preparing for this exam. I just use this acronym so I at least can, identify each of the core layers in the defense in depth strategy. So the P is for the physical security, the identity, the perimeter, the network, the compute, the application, and the data. So you get an idea. It's nothing really critical, it's just my personal way of doing it, and I just want to, share it with you. It's a lot that we're trying to absorb in a real quick time frame. So if it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, that is just my personal way of doing it my way. All right, we're going to take a look at security posture. And security posture has to do with how well you can detect and respond to threat. So we're talking about detection and reaction as a matter of protection. So that is what security posture is about. So when we talk about security posture, it is that we're talking about cybersecurity, how you could detect threats, cybersecurity threat, and respond to those cybersecurity threat as well. Now, the common principle used to define a security posture are confidentiality, integrity, and availability, known collectively as CIA. So I'm not far off with my acronyms. We do have a lot of acronyms in IT. So CIA is a common principle that we use to define a security posture. So let's look at confidentiality. Confidentiality is need-based access to information only. So when we talk about just-in-time access before, and we talk about segregation and isolation, that's part of the confidentiality strategy. You with always on identity service for both information and infrastructure. This also includes integrity and information in transit and at rest. So you want to protect your information, you want to encrypt it in transit, and you also want to encrypt it at rest as well. Now, the next one we want to talk about is integrity. Integrity uses unique methods such as one-way hashing algorithm to ensure data is not tampered with in transit or when it gets to the final destination as well. Next, we want to look at availability, and this ensures that only users with the right credentials are able to access data, and this is also actually a plan or actually a scenario that you could use with distributed denial of service attack as well. And I mentioned what DDoS is before. You want to prevent your system, or you want to filter out fake users that are trying to inundate your system, to overwhelm your system. You want to be able to detect and filter out those threats before they actually cause real denial of service to real users and real business processes. Now, firewall, we talk about this when I mentioned it briefly in the security posture or the security layer. Well, a firewall in general is a network security posture or a part of the network security posture that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and applies security rules to block or allow resources through the firewall. So it either deny or allow access. Firewall rules can rely on IP addresses, it can use network protocols, and it can use port rules to shield a destination server from external threats. So that is a firewall. Now, inside of Azure, a firewall is a service that protects a virtual network, your own private network of virtual machine inside the cloud. I want you to understand, if you're coming from a Windows Server background and you're familiar with firewall, there are also physical firewall, but we're talking about everything virtual. We're talking about Azure. We're talking about cloud computing. So everything is going to be done virtually at this level. So you do have physical firewalls as well, and you also have software firewall. So what we're talking about is software firewall in Azure, but you do have physical firewall. Now, Azure Firewall is stateful, it's always in a synchronous mode, and it's very broad in scope. It analyzes your entire network context across subscription. You could use it with your VNet in Azure, or you could use it with your on-premises network as well. From one central location, you can create, enforce, log activities using a static IP address. Now, this is a example of what I'm talking about with your VNets. Here you have a spoke VNet, you have the spoke 1, spoke 2. This is your network. It's connected through layer 3 and 7. It's connected to your firewall. Again, here's your VNet. Here's your Azure on-premises filtering, your on-premises below. So again, it could manage both your on-prem and off-prem solution. And then you have your NAT and network application traffic filtering rules that allow inbound and outbound traffic. The green is allowed and the red is denied. So this is a graphical overview and illustration of your Azure firewall at work. Okay, let's move on and see what else we got here. So we're looking now at the Azure Firewall, and you get the following features using the Azure Firewall. You help maintain high availability, and you get it built in into a firewall from blocking IP addresses or using it to shield network protocols. You're able to use ports, or you can open and close ports on demand, so you use it for on demand access. You get that ability. You get scalability as well, limitless scalability, so you could scale infinitely. In and outbound traffic filtering using defined rules for source and destination IP addresses. That's what I just mentioned. You could use the IP addresses, you could block IP addresses, known threats from IP addresses. You could block those addresses permanently. You could open IP addresses that you know are coming from um, reputable businesses. So you have all that control with the Azure Firewall. You also have inbound destination network. We talk about the DNAT support to do inbound routing. You get that as well with the firewall. You could route traffic based on where it's coming from. You get the Azure monitoring login integrated with your monitor for better support also. So your firewall can work with Azure Monitor as well. You also get a set of application rules using fully qualified domain names to limit an entire subnet of your VNet to a particular set of rules. Now let's take a look at the Azure Gateway, which is another piece of the VNet is another piece of your application tool that you'd use. It is a load balancer in general that uses web application firewall. So this is a different type of firewall that you use at the layer 7 level. The firewall I just spoke about, you're using it at the network level in your layered application. Now, this you can use for centralized inbound web application protection against common exploits and vulnerabilities. So this is your application gateway, remember it. Now, we also have a service called Front Door, and Azure Content Delivery Network also provides web application firewall services. Be reminded that there are, I think it's approximately three web firewall access features that you could use in Azure as well, in addition to the Azure Application Gateway, which is primarily used as a load balancer. Now, this is what I just spoke about with the traffic coming in, and you could use your DNAT rules to do the routing. These are where if you want to send your image to one location, you could send your videos to one location. You could do all this through your layer 7 application using your web access firewall through a domain name or a web browser. So you get an understanding of how powerful the web application firewall is. Now let's move on and see what else we got in the pipeline as it relates to security. So now this is your traffic. It's actually giving you an overview of DoD denial of service, and you can see the red, which is the fake traffic. It's being blocked. It's not getting through your distributed denial of service. So the protection is really working, and it's giving you a graphical illustration. This is your authorized customer. These are real genuine customers and employees, and as you see, they are able to go through and they're able to function properly, and you are able to filter out the attacker or the unnecessary or unwanted service that would be an attacker. Now, Azure Distributed Denial of Service Protection, their standard service there, it is there to help protect your resources from wide scale malicious attack that can overwhelm your online application with fake traffic. So we understand what it does. Now, Azure DDoD preemptively identifies and permanently block these attacks before they cause interruption of service. So if those IP addresses are known and the users can be clearly identified, you can block them permanently in your security posture so they don't become a threat downstream. But again, they keep recycling those IP addresses and those fake username and IP addresses. They will recycle them and change the IP address, and you have to keep on the alert to keep detecting and blocking them. Now, DDoS service, you have two different types of service. The basic service is on by default with an Azure subscription. You get that. But the DDoS standard provides extra mitigation capabilities such as volumetric attack that targets your network layer with what seems to be legitimate traffic from legitimate users. So if you want that extra protection, you would have to get the standard plan in the DDoS. Otherwise, you're using the basic solution. So up here, what we spoke about up right here is the standard solution. So you need to understand that for your exam and your own purposes, that there are two different services when it comes to denial of service. Now, the protocol attack exploit weaknesses in layer 3 and layer 4 protocol parameter. So you want to understand what layers the DDoS actually provides support for you in Azure. Now, that's the protocol attack exploit. If you look at the resource layer, it targets web application packets to disrupt transmission of data between hosts. You want to be able to understand what that is as well. You need a web application firewall to protect against layer 7 attacks. So if you have a firewall on your system, it's running at layer like a physical firewall or Azure firewall. It's running at layer 3 and layer 4 and the OSI layers. If you want layer 7 protection, you have to use one of the services that I mentioned before to give you web application protection at the layer 7 over the internet using your browser. So it's important that you understand that as well. Now, DDoS protection standard can only protect the web application from volumetric and protocol attack. You also need to understand what you're getting with that type of protection as well. Now let's talk about network security group. I mentioned it briefly, NSG, and it is a critical pillar in the defense in-depth strategy or posture at the network level. So now we're talking about network security. We talk about the firewall, which protect the networks at the front or at the front end. We're looking at the back end firewall. This is like a back end firewall in Azure. So while the firewall focuses on the external barrier or the front facing barrier, to your network, NSG allows you the ability to filter internal traffic among your resources. So it is like an internal firewall in a sense, your NSG. So remember that. Now, the Azure creates a set of default rules for each NSG that you create that provides basic security the same way the DDoS provides basic security for you. You cannot remove these basic rules, as is the case for most Azure resources that you create. There's some basic features on it that you are not able to remove, but you can upstage them with better rules that have higher priority levels, and you can use the higher priority numbers to override those rules. And I will be talking about how to do that real soon. Now, NSG is like an internal firewall. I mentioned that. It's your internal firewall appliance with multiple inbound and outbound security rules around IP addresses, ports, and protocols. So you get that three parameter control the same way you would get with a firewall. At this point, you have also control over your IP addresses when you do VNet. So you have a lot more control over NSG than you would with your external firewall. So it's very fluid, very dynamic, and you could use it to, block service and control your network resources internally. Now, this is a basic service that you get with an NSG when you create it. You have three basic rules. You can allow VNet inbound. You could also allow Azure Load Balancer inbound, and you could deny all inbound services. So you either deny or allow those services. So if you're not denying them, you're technically allowing them. That's what that is right there. Now, by default, all inbound traffic are blocked by NSG, which is number three at the bottom. So by default, when you create an NSG rule, it's blocked. If you want to let that rule through, you have to actually go in and change the property setting. Now, this is a general overview of what a network security group parameter or properties would look like. It would have to have a name. It has to be a unique name within your VNet or network. It has to have a priority number. So let's say, for example, the three rules you get by default are 1, 2, 3, or 100, 200, or 300. If you want to set a higher priority rule, you would have to set it at 400 so it could upstage those basic or those generic default rules that you already have in place. Now you need a source or destination IP address that you want to impact on, that you want to have an effect on. So you need to have that address or a range of address that you want to block or that you want to allow when you create your properties. Now you need a protocol if you're using TCP/IP, if you're using UDP, or if you're using any protocols at all within your rule. Now you also need a direction if it's inbound or outbound. Those are the only two directions you'll have. You'll also need a port range if you're using a single port. You would need that port number. If you're using a range of ports, you would need to provide that numeric range as well. And finally, your action. It's a binary action. You're either going to deny or allow access to a particular IP address or port or TCP protocol that you are using. So that is your NSG. I spoke about it before. Now you're getting an understanding of what the LSG is. Now let's take a more holistic look at the entire defense in depth strategy. So what we're doing, we're combining security features to provide a better security solution, a better cybersecurity posture for your Azure presence. So we have that. So security, we are securing the network layer using segmentation and isolation and control and prevent unnecessary wandering into fragile domains through lateral penetration. So you could deny by default and use secure connectivity at all times. So we're looking at the entire posture. Now at the parameter layer, you provides on the DDoS. I explained that you get firewall resistance as well before they become ash realities. You're adding NSG to the puzzle where you have more control inside. So if you penetrate the parameter level, you penetrate the physical security, you penetrate the identity, you penetrate the firewall, you still have internal security as well with the NSG and more identity. So you get an idea of how complex it is to really penetrate nowadays system inside the cloud, especially in Azure. So Network Security Group provides distributed network layer traffic filtering. Azure Firewall is a fully stateful and well-scoped centralized network firewall service. You get that as well, and you get the Azure Web Application Firewall at the HTTP level as well. So you could see you're getting security at every step of the way, layered security, and again, the strategy in depth is really to slow down penetration, and actually the primary goal is to deny access, but the strategy itself slows down penetration and give you time to react to a threat. Now, after completing this module, it seems like we have come to the end of this particular module. Let me take a look at it real quick. We're gonna be looking at the other module, which is actually, yeah, we've come to the actual end of this particular chapter actually. So let's pause at this moment